Hi, Emilio. So let's take a look at what you've got here with these new essays. Pollution, what are the reasons for it and how can we solve it? So let's take a look at what you said. In the last decades, experts throughout both you're missing a the here. Here's the thing. When you say countries, then you don't need a the. But if you say world, then you do need a the. So this should be both the developing and developed world have argued the environmental contaminant factors and possible solutions that mainly have taken place in large countries. All right, there is some awkwardness in this part of the sentence. First of all, the expression here, environmental contaminant factors, it's a little strange. It doesn't sound particularly natural. It's not like something we would normally say in English. So, and then also, even if you think about it, like with argued, how have they argued these things? So we do have to change around some of the vocabulary you've used there. Also, you said possible solutions that have taken place. So it doesn't really make sense logically. First of all, a solution doesn't take place, okay? So that also, they don't collocate. They don't create a collocation that makes sense. And if they've already taken place, then they're not possible, but they're real. They're actual. So you can see that this whole sentence has a number of problems with the vocabulary, and this reduces the effect of the coherence, how much it makes sense, okay? So let's move on. I believe that both governments and society have the responsibility to handle this problem, making changes such as decreasing the production of greenhouse gases. This essay will discuss that issue using examples from the Mexican government and UNAM University to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, fine. Let's move on. There is large evidence. This I have a problem with large. There is ample evidence. There is considerable evidence. This is a matter of collocation, Emilio, okay? Some words collocate, and that just means that they go together in a way that we're used to, in a way that sounds right to us. So there's not like a particular reason behind it, but just through use and over time, we're used to hearing words together. So we don't say large evidence, but we say one of the other things that I suggested, ample evidence or considerable evidence. So let's try that. There is considerable evidence that pollution is increasing in the last years. No, this should be has been increasing because of the expression last years, and it has been affecting the environment in large cities by increasing the amount of greenhouse gases. The central reason behind that is twofold. First, that there are many factories that use fossil fuels in their daily production, and so one of the products of that are greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide. Secondly, people are increasing in many countries, therefore the frequent you need an adjective in front of a noun, not an adverb. Use of cars has been increasing in recent years. Here you meant recent, again with a C, not an S. It's a different word. Okay. In the last few decades, the Mexican government has reported that oil companies produce 60% of the total carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and the remaining percentage, AGE, is related to automotive pollution. As a result, Mexico is one of the countries that produces, with an S, the highest levels of these sorts, S again, of gases in the world. In that sense, the government has created programs to reduce the problem. All right, I don't know why you have this sentence here. This whole paragraph is supposed to be talking about the problems of pollution. And you've told us there are two reasons for the pollution. You said that the factories are using fossil fuels and that the increase in people has led to an increased use of automobiles. So this whole paragraph focused on the reasons. So I don't know why you're now talking about, have this one little sentence that focuses on the solutions. So I don't really like that there. I didn't feel like it really belonged, okay? So many countries around the world have handled the environmental pollution in several ways by creating institutions and programs that instruct society to, not to concern, that's the wrong word again, that instruct society to, how about to tackle this problem, to face this problem, to deal with this problem. One of those words would have been okay. This is largely because those contaminants are affecting the ozone layer gravely. Gravely doesn't go here. Or you could have said are gravely affecting. That would have worked. Universities like UNAM in Mexico City have created education programs to motivate their students to leave the use of cars by replacing ing after by, you need an ing, with bicycles or simply to commute in the, how about this, commute with the subway or bus to arrive at school. This kind of example has had an impact on the general society consciousness so that more and more people have changed some of their habits. Just last year, UNAM University published a paper which showed that the ozone layer hole reduced its size. Thus, it is possible to state that the work of the society is important to protect the environment. Let's see. Okay. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that to contribute to reducing ing here, in large cities such as Mexico City, it is useful to motivate people to be aware of the effects of contaminants with an S. It is predicted that the role of universities will be essential to change the world. Okay, that's fine. Yes, fine, good. I liked the second paragraph. There was one thing that I wanted in the second paragraph that I didn't have. You had two problems here, but you really only had one solution, really, right? So you talked about these educational programs to leave cars behind and to use bicycles and so forth, but you never really addressed what the solution was for the factories that use fossil fuels. So now there's no real rule that says that for each of the problems you present you have to have a solution, but I kind of wanted one here, all right, because you only really focused on one solution. So it would have been nice to have included that as well. Like, what's the solution for this with the factories that use fossil fuels? But other than that, it was fine. Okay, as you could see, I thought that the biggest problem with this essay today was the vocabulary. You had words that didn't really create accurate collocations, and so that for me kind of was the one weak spot in this essay, but there were other areas that were very good. Definitely cohesive, definitely coherent. All of that was done well. Like I said, there was one other thing that I wanted you to add in this paragraph, but the grammar was okay. Some little things, little minor errors, but nothing too serious. Okay, so let's take a look now at what you wrote for your task 1. Here it is. Okay, this is car sales. Lovely. Okay, the bar chart depicts the number of sales of 3 brands, namely Ford, Audi, and BMW in 8 European countries in the year 2018. You didn't need this of here. At first glance, it can be seen that the highest number of sales were in Hungary and the least amount of sales in Belgium. Perfect. By looking at, you have to look at something, the bar chart in more detail, we can see that Hungary had the highest sales, closer to 400. Careful. Check it out. This is important, okay? Do you see these zeros here? This means that the numbers they're showing you are in thousands. So if you refer to 400, that's wrong, and they're going to totally mark down your score for giving inaccurate data. Okay? So it's really important that you understand, yes, use the numbers on the side, but also make sure that you're referring to them accurately. So, close, it's not closely, but it's close to 400,000, followed by France with more than 300,000 sales. It is clear that each brand had almost the same amount of sales in Hungary, which hovered around 160,000 cars each. Although BMW had the same sales both in Hungary and France, the number of sales of Audi and Ford decreased in France. The lowest sales were in Belgium and Italy and Belgium. The lowest sales of what? Of cars in general. Now you're confusing me, okay, because I don't know if we're talking about BMW or Audi or just total sales. With 120 and 90 cars respectively, Audi and BMW had only 1 or 2 sales in Belgium, and both Audi and Ford had 10 sales each in Italy. Get rid of this 1 here. Furthermore, it is evident that Germany, Ireland, and Holland had nearly the same sales, but not the same amount for each brand, where Ford had lower sales in Germany and Audi in Holland than the other 2 brands. A similar situation happened in UK and Poland. Both countries had almost similar had an almost similar number of sales between 210 and 200, but while Audi had only 10 sales in UK, in Poland the 3 brands had similar sales, hovering, I would have preferred here, around 80 cars. not as summarized, to summarize, from the graph it is clear that the sales in 2018 fluctuated from country to country, and the popularity of each brand was different in those 8 countries. Is it 8? No, it's 9, so careful with that. Okay. I wanted to read the whole thing through before I kind of gave you some more feedback. Let's see. You did a lot of good things. As far as I could tell, you mentioned all the countries, and that's really important. You had a clear overview. I really liked this paragraph. I thought this was very strong. You had a summary, which you didn't need, but you chose to use it, and that's fine, because I guess you said something different here than you said in your introduction. And there are sometimes, I agree with you, that can feel appropriate when you're doing a task 1. You don't need to. You were certainly above your word minimum. But I don't blame you for wanting to do it, because you essentially said something different in that summary than you did in your overview. So it was okay with me. I didn't mind that you did that. As long as you have time, of course, right? Because this was already really rather long. I mean, this was 236 words, even without the summary. So, yeah, look at that. It's 267 words. So, like I said, you didn't need it. I understood why you wanted it. And I don't blame you, but again, it's a matter of time if you have enough time, okay? So now what I want to talk about a little bit is the way you organized it. You did a couple of things that were good. You understood that you needed to absolutely talk about these total numbers, and that you also need to talk about the individual car brands. Believe me, a lot of people get this wrong. They don't talk about the total numbers at all. You did, and that was good. But I think in terms of coherence and cohesion, you could have organized this in a clearer way. Let me tell you what I mean. You could have spent one paragraph talking only about the totals. Okay? So you could have talked about, this is how I would have done it. I would have talked first about Hungary and Italy, Hungary and France's totals. Like you did too, I would have talked about Belgium and Italy's totals. And then I would have talked about the other countries, how they were between this and this. And then I was done with that paragraph, okay? Then I would move on to my next paragraph, which would talk about the individual car brands. Again, here it's about grouping. It's about selecting similar things and kind of lumping them together so you're not writing 100 sentences. So for BMW, I would probably say that in all 9 countries, except for Belgium, the numbers hovered, to use the word that you like today, around 100,000, okay, a little above, a little less. All right, only Belgium had a negligible amount of BMW sales. For Ford, the highest sales were found in Hungary and Holland. You can probably figure out what that number is. It looks like it's around 150,000 cars. Then you could say that Germany and Italy had very few, maybe like, I don't know, 10,000, maybe. Okay, and the rest of the countries again, and then just lump them together. All right, and then you do the same thing for Audi, and you're done. You're out of there. All right, you're out of there. So you're basically focusing on those highs that are interesting. You're focusing on those lows that are interesting. And then the stuff that is just like really detail, just group it together and just say it was between X and Y. So it was between, like, let's say 50,000 and 80,000. You don't have to be precise here. You're just giving me a general idea so that I can understand what you're looking at. All right, that's a good way to do it, and that's in general a good way to handle anytime you have something with so much data. If you think about it, you had 36 pieces of data here. Okay, you cannot and you should not mention everything. Wait, 36? Is that right? No, it's not. Hold on. Yeah, it is actually, because you had 9 countries, you had, this is 27, but if you also look at the totals, yeah, 36. So you shouldn't mention all of them. You really should just focus on the key ones, okay? Good job. I see that you're improving. I see your writing is progressing. Let's correct these and let's look at another set from you, okay? Good luck.